The Chosen just did something no biblical series has ever attempted. They took 8 years of storytelling and crammed it into a single day. Season 6, episode by episode, is about to put you inside the last 24 hours Jesus ever walked the earth. Let's talk about what's actually happening here, because once you understand the scale of this decision, you'll realize why so many fans are calling Season 6 the boldest move The Chosen has ever made. For 5 seasons, this show has stretched Jesus' ministry across years. Season 1 alone covered a wide window of time. Season 4 moved through months. But Season 6 throws that entire approach out the window and does something almost unheard of in scripted television. It covers a single 24-hour period, start to finish, across 6 full episodes plus a feature-length theatrical finale. That means every episode, every scene, every moment of dialogue is happening inside one continuous day. Not a season. Not a month. One day. And it's not just any day. It's the day Jesus was arrested, tried, condemned, and crucified. Good Friday, told in something close to real time. Dallas Jenkins, the creator, writer, and director of The Chosen, has been very direct about why they made this choice. In his own words, everyone knows the basic outline of the crucifixion story, but almost nobody understands the why behind it, or the sheer number of events that were packed into those final hours. Most film and TV depictions of the crucifixion give you an hour, maybe 2, of screen time. Jesus gets arrested, there's a quick trial, he's on the cross, and it's over. The Chosen is doing the opposite. They are stretching that single day across nearly 8 hours of total runtime once you count all 6 episodes and the finale. Instead of skipping past the parts audiences think they already know, the show is slowing everything down and forcing you to sit inside events most people have only ever heard summarized in a few sentences from a sermon or a Sunday school lesson. Here's where it gets even more interesting. According to the official synopsis released by Prime Video and 5 and 2 Studios, Season 6 follows Jesus' final day through the eyes of 2 groups at the same time, the people who loved him and the people who wanted him dead. The Pharisees believe they're delivering justice. The Romans believe they're keeping the peace. The disciples believe they're witnessing a murder. 3 completely different perspectives on the exact same set of hours, and the show is going to let you live inside all 3. That's not a small structural choice. That's the entire season built around the idea that the same 24 hours can look like justice to one person, peace to another, and pure tragedy to someone else standing right next to them. Now let's talk about the actual release structure, because this part matters if you're planning to watch it. Season 6 premieres November 15, 2026, exclusively on Prime Video, both in the United States and internationally. But here's the twist, you're not getting 1 episode a week from the start. The first 3 episodes drop all at once on premiere day. Then Episode 4 follows on November 22nd, Episode 5 on November 29th, and Episode 6 closes out the streaming portion of the season on December 6th. That's 6 episodes total on Prime Video. But the season isn't actually finished there. The true ending, the crucifixion itself, is being held back and released separately as a standalone, full-length theatrical event in spring 2027. So when people say Season 6 has 8 episodes, what they really mean is 6 streaming episodes and then a feature film that functions as the true climax, playing exclusively in theaters before it ever reaches a streaming platform. Think about what that means for pacing. 6 episodes to build every relationship, every betrayal, every quiet moment of dread leading up to the arrest in Gethsemane. And then, instead of folding the crucifixion into a rushed finale episode, the show is giving it the weight of an entire feature film, on the big screen, the way you'd experience a major theatrical release. Jenkins has said this decision came directly from realizing that 24 hours this significant deserved more than a TV episode could hold. It deserved the kind of scale and reverence you only get from a full theatrical experience. And that's just the surface level of what's coming. Because once you start digging into who's actually in this season, how the timeline is going to work hour by hour, and what the cast themselves have said about reading these scripts for the first time, you start to understand why people involved in making this show are calling it the heaviest, most emotionally demanding season The Chosen has ever produced. Now let's get into the people carrying this season, because the cast list alone tells you how massive this undertaking really is. Jonathan Roumie returns as Jesus, and by every account this is the darkest, most physically and emotionally demanding version of the role he's ever had to play. Shahar Isaac is back as Peter, Paras Patel as Matthew, Elizabeth Tabish as Mary Magdalene, Noah James as Andrew, George H. Xanthus as John, Abe Bueno-Jalad as Big James, Vanessa Benavente as Mother Mary, and Luc Dimien returning as Judas. On the other side of the story, Richard Fancy plays Caiaphas, Paul Ben-Victor plays King Herod, and Andrew James Allen plays Pontius Pilate. That's the full spread of power and betrayal the show needs to pull off a day this complicated, because Season 6 isn't just tracking Jesus. It's tracking every single person who had a hand in what happened to him. And that's really the key to understanding how this season is built. It's not a straight line following one man from arrest to the cross. It's a web. You've got Jesus being moved from location to location throughout the night and into the next day. He's taken to Annas first, then to Caiaphas, then in front of the full council, then to Pilate, then over to Herod Antipas, and then back to Pilate again before the crowd makes their final choice. Each one of those stops is its own scene, its own confrontation, its own piece of a much larger puzzle. And while that's happening, the show is cutting away constantly to show you what everyone else is going through at the exact same moment. Peter is falling apart after denying he ever knew Jesus. The women are trying to figure out where he's being held and what's happening to him. The apostles are scattering, hiding, panicking, some of them turning on each other out of fear. Judas is spiraling toward the ending we already know is coming for him. None of these threads happen in isolation. They're all stitched together into the same 24 hours, running in parallel. That structural choice is exactly why the pacing on this season is so different from anything The Chosen has done before. Previous seasons could slow down, breathe, let a conversation unfold over several minutes because there was no ticking clock. Season 6 doesn't have that luxury. Every scene is racing against a clock that's already running out. And yet, according to people close to the production, this isn't a season that rushes past the emotional beats just because time is short. If anything, the compressed timeline forces the show to slow down inside individual moments even more than usual, because there's no room to skip past anything. Every insult, every betrayal, every small act of cruelty or unexpected kindness during that day gets its own space to breathe, even while the overall clock keeps ticking forward. The physical toll of what Jesus endures during this window is also getting far more screen time than typical film depictions allow. Most crucifixion scenes in movies compress the scourging, the walk to Golgotha, and the crucifixion itself into a tight sequence lasting maybe 20 or 30 minutes total. The Chosen is doing the opposite, spreading that suffering across multiple episodes so that audiences actually sit with the weight of it instead of watching it fly by. That includes the scourging itself, which by early accounts is being portrayed with an intensity the show hasn't attempted before, and the mockery Jesus faces at the hands of Herod's soldiers, who dress him up and taunt him as a fake king before sending him back to Pilate. What's striking is how the cast themselves reacted to reading these scripts for the first time. Noah James, who plays Andrew, told reporters that going through the material left him sitting on his couch in tears for 2 straight days. That's not a small reaction from someone who's been part of this show since the very beginning. It tells you that even the people making this season, who already know how the story ends, were not prepared for how it would feel to actually live inside those hours page by page. Dallas Jenkins echoed that sentiment himself, calling Season 6 the most important, the biggest, and the heaviest season the show has ever produced, while also promising that there are still moments of real joy and meaning woven through it, which is not what most people expect from a season built entirely around the crucifixion. The first teaser trailer backs that up. It opens quietly, with Mary looking at her son before everything falls apart, and then shifts hard into torchlit chaos, arrests happening in the dark, and the disciples scattering in fear. Within just a few days of release, that 90-second teaser had already pulled in more than 1.5 million views on YouTube alone, which tells you exactly how much anticipation has been building around this season. People are not just curious. They're bracing themselves. And there's still more to unpack, because once you look at how the show plans to release the final chapter of this story, the theatrical finale, and what that means for the future of the entire series, the scale of what The Chosen is attempting here becomes even clearer. So let's talk about how this whole story actually ends, because the way The Chosen is closing out this season is unlike anything the show has done in 5 previous seasons combined. The 6 streaming episodes will only take you through part of the day. They cover the arrest in Gethsemane, the trials in front of Annas and Caiaphas, the appearance before the Sanhedrin, the transfer to Pilate, the detour to Herod, and the crowd's final decision. That's already an enormous amount of ground for 6 episodes to cover. But the crucifixion itself, the actual ending of this story, is being held back entirely from streaming. Instead, it's being released as a standalone theatrical event in spring 2027, playing in theaters before it ever reaches Prime Video. That means the true climax of Season 6 won't be something you scroll to and press play on at home. It's something you'll have to go sit in a theater for, the same way you would for any major film release. That decision alone tells you everything about how seriously this production is treating the crucifixion. Dallas Jenkins has said plainly that this moment deserved more than a normal episode could give it. It deserved the scale of a full theatrical event, the kind of runtime and cinematic weight you'd expect from a feature film, not a 50-minute streaming episode squeezed in alongside everything else. And when you think about it that way, the structure of the whole season starts to make sense. 6 episodes to build every relationship, every fear, every quiet unraveling among the people who loved Jesus. And then, once all of that has been laid down, the finale arrives separately, in theaters, as its own complete experience. There's also something worth sitting with here beyond the production details. This isn't just a TV show experimenting with a new struct.